Alright, today I'm going over a few moments that left everybody watching MasterChef from home in absolute shock. And I know I certainly was. Just like this time, when the judges decided to ship 4 contestants off to Las Vegas. For the team challenge, the judges paired Luca with Kathy and Beth with Natasha. These pairs were tasked with cooking a stunning burger at Chef Ramsay's burger restaurant. Luca took the lead for the red team, Beth headed the blue team, and Chef Ramsay was the expediter for both of them. The pressure was mounting, and everyone knew that Ramsay hated to see mistakes. The challenge first started off with 60 minutes of prep time. In the red team, Luca suggested using beef as a patty to go with the caramelized onions on top with some added sauce. He thought the cheese wouldn't be necessary, and Kathy, his partner, seemed to agree with whatever he said. She kept nodding all the way and went with his ideas, but in truth, she actually disagreed with him. Meanwhile, in the blue team, Beth came up with an idea of using beef as the patty as well. But she wanted it served with some prosciutto, goat cheese, and some aioli topped with eggs sunny side up. Natasha seemed to hesitate about the eggs, but still went with it. Both Kathy and Natasha were playing their own game. Since they had no say in their dishes, if anything went wrong, they could easily put the blame on their partners Luca and Beth. However, they seemed to forget one crucial point. It was a team challenge, and this meant their decision could backfire. While the prep was going on, both teams struggled to keep up with it. In the blue team, Natasha was having a few problems with the eggs. Beth asked for a better idea, but Natasha wanted to go with Beth's idea as their plan. As both tried to keep up with the eggs, they moved on to dressing the salad. And in the midst of it all, both of them forgot about the dish's main component, the patty. Had Chef Ramsay not reminded them, the blue team had no chance in this competition. And this left Ramsay frustrated. In a stern voice, Chef Ramsay warned them by saying this:
"Someone's going home tonight. At this stage, it's one of you."
The doors were close to being thrown open for the service, and there was only 3 minutes until they did. Both teams were hurrying up with their dishes, but Beth and Natasha still had no idea what to do with the eggs. These 2 contestants were letting their ego get in the way of the challenge. And everyone knows that when there's no teamwork, the challenge is bound to fail. At the very last minute, the ladies decided to scrap the eggs and go with goat cheese arugula. Was this a wise decision? Well, we're about to find out. The burgers from both teams were served simultaneously to the customers. Ultimately, they would have to vote on which one was better. Before we move on to the service, let's take a little look at what the blue team would be serving. As for the red team, they would be serving this. Now, as we said, these burgers were sent out at the same time to everyone. If the team said 2 minutes to the window, it had to be 2 minutes. And if Chef Ramsay needed to hold it back, it would only be for a max of 60 seconds. If they failed to turn it in, the team would start losing votes. Once the service began, both teams had 75 minutes to serve. As tickets poured into the kitchen, viewers got a glimpse of Chef Ramsay's serious demeanor that he's always had on Hell's Kitchen. But would he be less hard on everyone since it was MasterChef? Hell no. Anyway, the red team got off to an early start, and Ramsay had to remind the blue team of the rules by saying,
"Red team's in the window. Blue team, 60 seconds from now."
Chef Ramsay was on fire as usual, and the contestants were struggling to keep up.
I'm like talking to myself here.
Both teams were serving burgers at a good pace, but sometime later, the red team struggled with their orders. Chef Ramsay was getting impatient with the wait and started to count down the 60-second hold.
3, 2, 1.
As the time was about to run out, Luca finally walked up with some burgers. Whew, that was close. However, Ramsay spotted something that made him incredibly mad. You won't believe what he saw.
It's still moving. It's that raw.
Since they already ran out of time, there was no chance of refiring them, so the red team lost a point. Chef Ramsay sent them off with a final instruction and said this:
Take that back. Then wake up.
Back in the blue team, Beth and Natasha were having problems preparing the buns. And in the process, they literally charred the hell out of a bun. Chef Ramsay picked it up with a sense of disbelief and said,
"You're out of control.
Sorry, Chef.
You're way out of control."
While the kitchen was falling apart, in the dining room, the customers were casting their votes. Joe was tasked with walking around to get the customers' feedback when one of them called him out. One of the patrons said that she was happy with the blue team's burgers, but not so much with the red ones. When Joe tried to find out why, this is what he found.
I think it's undercooked.
It's raw.
Joe walked up with a burger to Chef Ramsay, who couldn't believe how such an undone burger even left the kitchen. He called the team out and gave them their last warning.
Got to stop. Rethink and get a grip.
Imagine coming across a raw burger at Chef Ramsay's restaurant. Now that's just embarrassing. As the challenge continued, Ramsay announced the arrival of VIPs, and take a wild guess who they were.
Welcome. Sir.
It's all the other contestants.
Yep, they were none other than the other remaining contestants. To get some fair votes, Chef Ramsay asked both teams to take their aprons off. There would be no bias now, since the votes would only be based on the taste of things. In order to redeem themselves, Luca made a plan to send out burgers as soon as Ramsay called for them. By doing this, the blue team would struggle to catch up and miss the opportunity to get a vote. But would his plan be successful? The pressure at this point was intense.
Next four, how long?
Up now, set.
Just as planned, the red team started sending out burgers at a rapid pace, and the blue team struggled to keep up. With the red team firing out orders, the blue team started to crumble, like literally crumble. And Chef Ramsay couldn't believe his eyes.
How can you stand in front of a grill and burn buns?
The buns were almost charred once again, and Chef Ramsay had to say the obvious.
Even if you're blind, you smell them burn. Man!
Luca's plan actually worked, and the blue team failed to serve their last 4 burgers. And if there's one reason why they were leaving, then it had to be the burnt buns. However, Luca rushed to send out the orders. But in his team's haste, were the burgers still good? Now, let me remind you, the judging was completely based on the taste of the burgers and how perfectly they were cooked. The losing team would have to face a head-to-head challenge. And not surprisingly, with the standards that I just told you, with 4 burgers short from the blue team, this was the ultimate result.
It was close, but the blue team won.
Well, it was all about taste, guys, and the blue team nailed it. See, given the pressure, it's understandable why some contestants end up taking shortcuts. But this next contestant redefined the entire concept of cheating. As you may know, Season 12 brought back some culinary veterans for an all-star showdown, including some junior contestants too. But here's the burning question: did the home cooks learn from their past mistakes? Well, they were about to find out. And what better trial by fire than having to feed the US Coast Guard? I mean, can you even imagine the pressure? Now, each team was tasked with preparing a hearty meal for over 100 hungry servicemen and women. The blue team, consisting of cooks from seasons 1 to 7, faced off against the red team featuring home cooks from seasons 8 to 11. Alejandro stepped up as the captain for the red team, while Christian led the charge for the blue team. And the stakes, well, one person from the losing team would face elimination. So the red team kicked things off with some steaks. But hold up, Chef Ramsay caught wind that they were serving up cold cuts.
The tray's cold, the steak's cold. I'm not gonna let you just send out.
Not exactly the kind of hot start they were aiming for, right? Of course, Chef Ramsay, being the guy that he is, wasn't pleased. He made sure that they turned up the heat with some very choice words. And in a wild twist, he shuffled the Coast Guard over to the blue team's turf instead. But guess what? The blue team wasn't doing much better either.
We have no mash? Oh my god.
The mashed potatoes were still cooking, and Chef Ramsay's frustration, well, it was practically radiating through the screen. Despite it all though, the initial feedback the diners gave seemed surprisingly positive for both teams. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. Anyway, in the midst of serving up food for the Coast Guard, a raw steak made an unwelcome appearance, and Chef Ramsay, in pure Ramsay fashion, did this. Oh man. Well, thankfully, the fish were probably gonna appreciate that much more than the Coast Guard. But brace yourself for the real shocker of the afternoon. Alejandro, undeterred by the steak now sleeping with the fishes, decided to play a risky game. He picked up a tray of steaks that had fallen down onto the floor by mistake and tossed them right back onto the grill.
They're gonna get cooked.
Seriously, how dumb could you be? Well, apparently, it was enough to kill the bacteria it picked up from the floor. At least according to our man Alejandro. So, no harm, no foul, right? I shouldn't even need to mention Chef Ramsay's reaction to this.
You think I'm gonna keep you as a captain? I stuck them on the grill because I thought I'd kill the bacteria.
Yeah, there was no coming back from that tongue lashing. Anyway, one user pointed out how Alejandro didn't learn one thing since his last stint on the show. 2 of his teammates told him that the meat wasn't done and that it was too rare, and were even proven right, and yet all he said to them was, trust me, trust me. This guy just doesn't listen. And then there was the whole drop steak thing. Anyway, with the chaos reaching epic proportions, Chef Ramsay took the opportunity to fire Alejandro as the team captain and appointed Michael to take charge instead. Just when the red team was careening over the edge of disaster, Chef Ramsay's quick thinking of appointing a better leader saved the day. The man is built for that kind of thing. But most of the time, those warnings of his fall on some real deaf ears. and the result is never good. Well, what happened in Season 4, Episode 5 was the absolute epitome of that. The challenge was that the contestants had to form teams and whip up a feast for a bunch of pint-sized food critics. Now, Jordan took the reins as the captain of the blue team and was tasked with satisfying the taste buds of an entire elementary school. I'm sure all of you with kids can understand how tall of a task that is. In his lineup, he recruited Adriana, Kathy, Howard, Johnny, Savannah, Eddie, James, and Chrissy. Looking like a dream team, right? Well, on paper you'd think so. Anyway, what exactly was their mission, you ask? It was to create a menu that included turkey meatballs with pasta, green beans, and an apple crisp for dessert. Sounds delicious, right? But wait, hold on. Even before things really got going, Chef Ramsay had some major doubts.
How many meatballs per portion?
We'll probably be right around 2. If it's going to be short, we'll check the...
So 2 balls.
I mean, feeding 300 kids? That's a whole lot of meatballs. We're talking about 1,000 or more minimum. Chef Ramsay knew that there was no way a bunch of amateurs could figure that out, especially with a time crunch looming over them.
600 meatballs are gonna make?
600 meatballs.
Oh my God.
The pressure was on, the clock was ticking, and you couldn't help but wonder, would the blue team somehow be able to pull off this miracle? Well, I wouldn't be talking about it right now if they did, would I? The blue team stumbled right out of the gate, starting fashionably late.
Guys, we just started making meatballs. 20 more to get to 600 meatballs.
And amidst the chaos, Chrissy, with some kind of culinary sixth sense, saw the impending catastrophe as well.
The time it's taken us making all these meatballs is just stupid.
I mean, that's not a superpower or anything, it's just basic knowledge a chef should have. Or like basic math skills. Hopefully those kids were being taught better than them. Meanwhile, the judges, who were eagerly awaiting a feast, were dumbfounded by the sluggish progress of the blue team. More than 600 meatballs were on the line, and the team's sluggish speed wasn't exactly moving things along. As the clock kept ticking, the blue team found themselves in a very tough situation where they shockingly couldn't make all those meatballs. And in a desperate attempt to salvage this sinking ship, a tactical shift was in order and it needed to come fast.
You need to start diversing and someone step up and take responsibility.
Meanwhile, Chef Ramsay was completely livid. With every passing minute, his tolerance dwindled further and further. And that's when Jordan came into the picture, and well, he had a weird solution. In a light bulb moment, he decided to switch gears and whip up some meat sauce instead.
We're just going to do a meat sauce. You don't need to roll them anymore.
But guess what? Things were about to get real saucy. With barely a minute left on the clock, the green beans were still having some major issues.
1 minute to go.
Bean salad, I need it ASAP.
But they were really just a symptom of the bigger issues at hand. In the grand scheme of these unfortunate events, a trifecta of poor decisions, a dash of terrible teamwork, and a generous sprinkle of abysmal leadership, the teammates crumbled under the pressure like never before. However, what happened in this next episode will make you question everything you know about the basics of cooking duck. Okay, so stick with me for a second because Sean and Katie had their sights set high. Together, they decided to whip up scallops for the appetizer and duck breast for the main course. And let's be real, these proteins are no walk in the park at the best of times. They're both real fickle in terms of timing. But, well, how else could they prove their worth? So these contestants decided to go all in with this huge risk, hoping for some huge rewards on the other end of this challenge. So Junie took the helm for the blue team while Julia commanded the red team. This was a strategic move that added an extra layer of unpredictability to the kitchen showdown. And once they stepped into the cooking tent, it was game on. The planning commenced and things got real strategic real quick. Julia faced a bit of resistance to her menu ideas initially, but like a true captain, she held her ground and rallied her team's support. Now, Chef Ramsay was on a mission to check the red team's progress. Little did he know he was about to uncover a disaster the likes of which he'd only seen on kitchen nightmares before.
Stop!
Turns out the team had seasoned the duck before cooking it, a move that even the rookiest of rookies knows spells disaster. Salt pulls moisture out of things after all. And Chef Ramsay's fury reached new heights when he figured out what they'd done.
You never season them until you cook them. Because when you hit the pan, there's going to be watery.
Would the red team recover from this seasoning setback, or would they serve up a ducking disaster? Well, you'll need to wait for an upcoming video of mine to find out. But for now, nothing could prepare me for this bizarre wait.
Get a cloth and dry them. Get rid of the seasoning quickly.
Yeah, it was one of those kind of moves that would make Chef Ramsay question his life choices. And not surprisingly, what happened next was truly shocking.
Blue team, we're all over the place. No one's communicating, and the captain's disappeared.
Meanwhile, over on the blue team, it seemed like they too were on a mission to test Chef Ramsay's patience right from the start. And yeah, their menu idea raised more than a few eyebrows.
Put your hands in the air if you've ever seen an orange-zested mash in any restaurant anywhere in the world.
The famous chef even called their idea downright foolish before the blue team had to do some serious menu soul-searching. He demanded better ideas, prompting them to reshuffle their entire meal plan in a race against the clock. So, what do you think happened? Would the blue team rise from the ashes of their initial blunder, or was Chef Ramsay about to declare a culinary state of emergency? Just when you thought the blue team had weathered the storm, turns out they went all in for yet another culinary tempest.
The party have sat down, and the puree's raw. Blue team, we're all over the place.
Yup, they were all set to serve a puree, but the pureeing part wasn't exactly flawlessly executed. As if that wasn't enough, Junie walked in with a whole plate of garlic mashed potatoes which were equally time-consuming and, dare I say, uninspiring. Meanwhile, Shanika tried to steer the ship in the right direction, offering some guidance of her own, but Junie clung to his garlic-laden dream with as much stubbornness as he could possibly muster. In Junie's world, the garlic mashed potatoes were the pinnacle of wedding feast perfection. I mean, from my perspective, I think it would put off the bride and groom from kissing each other, but you do you, man. Anyway, Chef Ramsay didn't have the patience to wait and watch. He stepped in once again and let the blue team have it.
How does that become a stunning mash?
What's more, upon learning Shanika's wisdom, Chef Ramsay urged the team to follow her lead. And yeah, Junie eventually conceded, but that didn't mean that he didn't find himself at a crossroads. The stakes were very high, and Chef Ramsay had a crucial decision to make.
You are not going to captain this team any longer. Have a meeting and somebody step up and run this team. If not, I'm going to run it.
In a dramatic turn of events, the famous chef stripped Junie of his rank. Taylor immediately stepped into the role with clear vocalization of ideas and strategic direction. That was her signature style in action. It was a clear contrast to Junie's mismanagement. Eventually, the blue team, under Taylor's guidance, managed to salvage the situation and finish things off on a high note. However, let's be honest, victory eluded them, leaving them with a taste of both redemption and the bitter reality of a culinary near miss. However, this next contestant ended up working with fish and struggled far more than anyone else because of it. Felix got to choose from the 9 different fish: rockfish, John Dory, catfish, yellowtail, salmon, and Arctic char, to name a few. What's more, she had the power to decide which fish each competitor would be dealing with. So Felix went all in and chose the halibut for her cooking challenge. Now, let me tell you, that's no walk in the park. Halibut is easy to cook decently, but tricky to master, but she was feeling gutsy and wanted to put herself to the test. However, even the judges were a little worried by her decision. They asked her not once, but twice if she was absolutely sure she was gonna go for the halibut.
Halibut.
That's quite difficult to fillet. You are up for elimination, Felix.
I understand.
So, what do you think? Would her gamble pay off, or was she in for a rough ride? Well, I'm coming back to that in just a bit. As for Tally, he lucked out with the Arctic char. Either way, the challenge kicked off and the contestants made their typical quick 5-minute dash to the pantry, and then the game was on. The home cooks had yet another 60-minute countdown to cook up something amazing. Now, let me remind you, Tally had landed one of the easiest fish of the bunch. With that little factoid in mind, let's see what he was up to.
Look at it, it's a dream. What's the dish? What are you doing?
Well, I'm gonna sous vide this fish.
Sous vide it?
Yeah.
The moment Chef Ramsay makes a face like that, consider it bad news. But guess what Tally did? He decided to suck all the flavor out of the char before he even thought about serving it. Because who needs flavor, right?
It's an oily fish. Why would you sous vide that?
It cooks it in its own juices and it keeps that flavor locked.
And do I even need to talk about Joe's reaction? Well, if you're out of the loop, let me get you up to speed.
Completely unnecessary. The Arctic char is certainly the easiest fish here today.
Yeah.
You could steam it, grill it, saute it.
He didn't even realize what he was doing. Going by the initial reaction from the judges, I kinda guessed that Tally was inevitably going to find himself in the bottom 3.
Serving green lentils with it, bacon, mustard.
All those flavors are gonna obliterate it.
Anyway, the judges walked around to see what the home cooks came up with, but Tally's dish failed to make much of an impression.
Trial run.
Yeah.
Now, instead of taking what Chef Ramsay had to say seriously, this is what Tally decided to clap back with.
It's frustrating when Chef Ramsay interrupts me, and it's kind of like interrupting a master artist.
What was this? The joke of the season? Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, time ran out and it was time to see what the home cooks had whipped up. First up was Felix with her poached halibut, bamboo rice, asparagus, and lemon apple sauce. And boy oh boy, the judge's initial warnings to avoid the halibut came back to bite her big time.
You had the advantage for yourself. Are you here to win?
I'm here to win.
I think at this point, Felix was dying to tell Joe to just shut up and taste the dish already. I mean, if I was in her place, that's exactly what I'd be feeling. But you definitely can't rush a guy like Joe. After all, you gotta wait for him to cook up a brutal response first.
Totally overcooked the fish. More importantly, how you can let an opportunity like that slide by you.
Anyway, up next, it was time for Chef Ramsay, and let's see what he had to say.
Slightly dry. So it's not your best. Unfortunately, you're sort of halfway.
When Chef Ramsay said halfway up the ladder, I think that was kinda generous. And Graham twisted the knife when he asked her when she was planning on getting serious. Well, you have to see her reaction to this.
I don't know, I wanted to challenge myself with a halibut.
But just as she was explaining herself, Graham dropped a remark, and I swear, it felt like she shriveled up and died on the spot.
How badly do you want to win? Do you feel good that, well, at least I challenged myself and I made a pretty crappy halibut dish?
But wait, because things were about to get even more embarrassing.
Sorry, Felix, but your plan backfired because she did nail it.
As for Tally, well, he stepped up to the judges with his Arctic char and green lentils. And don't let his easier fish fool you, the judges were just as brutal. Joe straight up told him that he was consistently letting them down.
What do chefs do?
Chefs cook.
So it's not master orator or master tell me about what my intention is about cooking. It's master chef.
And nope, he didn't stop there. He continued to embarrass Tally.
You have a bunch of herb scraps with no dressing on top of some poorly conceived cooked Arctic char.
Anyway, here comes the savage Chef Ramsay, and what was his verdict?
You're misinterpreting the competition. It's MasterChef, not Master Bait.
Oh man, believe me, I never saw that coming. Honestly, when it comes to insults, Chef Ramsay's got the market cornered. But he wasn't done yet. The premonition that his fish would end up flavorless ended up coming to the pass, and he made that clear to Tally. But Tally hit back with this whole judges are too old school to appreciate my food attitude. Dude, get over yourself. In the end, after some deliberation, Monty and Frank emerged as the heroes with some actually outstanding dishes. They secured their spots as the team captains for the next challenge. On the flip side, David, Tally, and Christine were in for a reckoning. Or, well, at least David and Tally. Christine did get a pass and was safe for the day. But now, brace yourself, because Tally ended up on the receiving end of one hell of an elimination. About time, right? Now, how many of you wanted Dave to leave? Don't you think that he dodged a bullet way too many times despite how terrible his food was? If you agree, make sure to leave a like down below, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications. Also, don't forget to check out my Discord server for free, which is the best platform to keep the discussion going. What's more, you can also become a member of my channel by hitting this tab right here. From making video recommendations to sharing some crazy behind the scenes moments, being a member has more perks to offer than you can imagine. In the meantime, let me walk you over to the Mystery Box Challenge of Season 15. This is when each contestant got their mystery box ingredients to whip up something magical in under 60 minutes.
You've got 1 hour. Show us that you mean business.
But here's the catch. The judges were only tasting 3 dishes, so the contestants had to impress them with a top-notch presentation. Eventually, Adrian was crowned as the Mystery Box Champ, and he got to strut into the MasterChef pantry and handpick the ingredient for the elimination test. And what was the theme for that week? Well, check this out.
Theme for today's elimination test is desserts.
Desserts. But Adrian got to play a little devilish game. Maybe serve up his fellow competitors their just desserts in the process?
Which ingredient are you choosing for you and for your competitors?
And his options were coffee, pineapples, and nuts. Adrian walked back to the kitchen after choosing nuts for himself and coffee for everybody else. And let me tell you, that revelation got a hell of a mixed reaction.
Come on, seriously?
Coffee's something I love, it's something I know.
Fast forward 90 minutes after a hell of an intense cooking session, but that's its own story, and then it was judgment time. Adrian stepped up first, and this is what Graham said after tasting his dessert.
Well, it seems like you chose chocolate as your ingredient. The nuts are just kind of a garnish on top.
Chef Ramsay was also disappointed.
You can't really identify what we've done
different from the nuts on top to the nuts inside that mixture.
Despite having the advantage, Adrian still messed up the challenge. And trust me, Joe didn't plan on coddling this guy either.
I think you took an incredible advantage and squandered it.
Well, he definitely wasn't wrong. Adrian had blown his one opportunity. But guess what? He wasn't the only one. There were bad dishes all around, including Jenny, who had the audacity to serve up a raw tart. But to make a very long story short, the three names were eventually announced. Jenny with her raw tart, Alvin with what Chef Ramsay called a coffee blood clot, ouch, and you'd expect Adrian to be number 3, right? Well, I've got some news for you. Forget about Adrian, I haven't even gotten started on Max yet. So let's rewind a little bit. Max stepped up, armed with desserts that seemed to be designed to embarrass the living daylights out of himself. Chef Ramsay took the first bite, and guess how he reacted?
Damn.
Yup, he went silent. Oh man, it was one of those moments where you could almost feel the tension through the screen. Instead of just giving his verdict right away, Chef Ramsay threw a curveball at Max and asked him to taste it. And what did Max do?
It's like I've just gone to the doctors for a skin graft on my butt and stuck it in caramel. That is a horrible, weird texture.
He stood there, beaming with confidence. He was smiling as if he had just served up a dessert fit for a king. But hold on, Chef Ramsay wasn't letting him off the hook that easy. He laid down the brutal truth about how embarrassing his dessert was at this level of the competition. You'd think Max would be shrinking into a puddle of shame, right? Nope, he was grinning from ear to ear for some reason. Next, it was time for Graham to take a bite, and how do you think he reacted? Yeah, his face spoke a lot more than his words. He just could not come to terms with what he had just eaten. And then, he went on to deliver a final blow. He called out the dish for its horrible texture and basically warned him that he should be seriously worried.
You know, the fact that it's an elimination test, it's serious.
I mean, the situation was so embarrassing that awkward doesn't even begin to cover it. Anyway, time to cut to the chase. Chef Ramsay didn't hold back, stating that Jenny's dish was a serious contender for being the worst dish of the night, but guess what? 2 others were even worse, so luckily she was in the clear. This time. Now, when it came to Alvin, Chef Ramsay delivered the gut punch. His dish took the crown for being the worst of the night, and it was time for him to say goodbye. Ouch. But hey, at least Alvin got a parting note about being courageous, but needing to nail the basics before moving forward. And on the bright side, look at who survived to cook another day.
You. Back on your station. Thank you, Chef.
Mystery box challenges never cease to amaze me. And this one from season 6 is no different for all the wrong reasons. So what happened is, Derek was named the man of the hour, and part of his advantage, he got to choose the fate of the elimination challengers.
Your first advantage is that you not have to cook in tonight's elimination challenge.
But as always, there's a twist.
A TV dinner.
Oh, yeah. Mom's meatloaf.
Look at this beauty.
It was all about elevating something everyone's pulled out of their freezer at some point, a TV dinner. But not just any TV dinner, oh no. The options were turkey, meatloaf, or Salisbury steak, each featuring a judge's face with a fake mustache because why not, right? Now, Derek got to pick just one of them, and the contestants had to whip up a gourmet version in just 1 hour.
Salisbury steak with broccoli and mac and cheese.
Salisbury steak with mac and cheese and broccoli was on the menu. Veronica was practically celebrating since she'd been a TV dinner connoisseur for 59 years. I'm not sure if I should be proud or scared for her.
Salisbury steak is one of my favorite dishes.
But hold on, there was a wicked twist to come. Derek, reveling in his final advantage, got to play the puppet master. He could pick one contestant who had to stand there and do nothing for the first 15 minutes. Derek, grinning from ear to ear, singled out Christopher. And believe me, things were about to get heated.
I can't really believe that Derek would target me. I'm so angry right now I could sear a steak on my forehead.
Meanwhile, Jesse decided to go all out with venison meat and planned to whip up some fried mac and cheese. And this is when he found out something.
If there's one thing I've loved in this country is mac and cheese. I've never had a fried mac and cheese.
I've had it before and I've cooked it before, but I'll have to see if I can get that.
Turns out, Chef Ramsay had never tried fried mac and cheese, and you could practically hear the collective gasp from all around. Meanwhile, Veronica got a gentle nudge from Christina about her usual lackluster presentation.
Every time we've had something that's delicious from you, presentation, how you've elevated it visually, what do you have planned?
Well, consider that a warning. Christina also wanted to know what Veronica had up her sleeve, and guess what was Veronica's response? She said that it would look like a TV dinner, and this left the judges baffled.
It's already set for me. It's going to look like a TV dinner.
Okay, you did hear the point.
Christina, trying to maintain her composure, asked Veronica if she heard what the challenge was all about. It was to elevate the TV dinner and make it restaurant quality. Well, of course, Veronica knew the rules. It's just that she couldn't care less. She made a casual hand move towards the judges to dismiss their apprehensions and then said,
My grandkids are waiting to hear you guys say awesome.
Oops, it looks like Granny's got her own rules. But let's see if it could save her from elimination. Moreover, Christina tried one last time to drill in the importance of presentation before they decided to move on.
Please keep in mind presentation, elevation.
I will.
Okay.
I will. You'll be proud.
And finally, Veronica stepped up with her creation, and boy oh boy, it was a disaster.
I asked you to cook one portion of a TV dinner.
It looked like she raided the rejects from an old country buffet, tossed them in some bowls, and called it a day. Sloppy, gloppy, basically every word that ends in PY you could think of, except happy. Definitely not happy. Chef Ramsay was so incredibly disappointed, and it was written all over his face.
This thing looks like it's fit for King Kong's kitchen.
He wanted to make his point clear. Veronica had completely missed the objective. But she genuinely looked surprised for some reason. Seriously? How are you surprised when Christina warned you about this just minutes ago? Chef Ramsay laid it out for her, saying, I asked you to cook one portion of a TV dinner to make it elegant and upscale it. This thing looks like it's fit for King Kong's kitchen. Well, the famous chef always has a way with his words. And yep, he tried to drive home the point once again just so there wouldn't be any misunderstanding.
How many times over the last 3 or 4 weeks have I asked you to refine things down to a plate?
I think it's a refined dish. It's awesome.
She continued to claim that her dish was awesome. And that's not all, because what happened next was absolutely disgusting.
What's this in here? What's the water in there? What is that?
The water has wilted out of the broccoli.
As Chef Ramsay poured out what seemed like a gallon of liquid from the bowl of broccoli, he groaned and then gave her a stare that said it all.
You're still cooking like we're at a Vegas buffet, and 3 compartments of it has been filled up with puke.
If that wasn't already embarrassing enough, he then started to walk away. Veronica was devastated. She secretly hoped someone else would screw up just to avoid being sent home. The struggle was real. And well, Jesse might just turn out to be the candidate to fulfill her wish. However, despite feeling good about his dish, Chef Ramsay didn't hold back with his critique.
Jesse.
Yes, sir.
I have to say it's one of the most bizarre looking dishes of the night.
Jesse made a venison Salisbury steak with broccoli and fried mac and cheese, and this is how the judges reacted.
Jesse, it's like swallowing a mouthful of sand. It is seriously dry.
The venison appeared dry, and his pickled broccoli wrapped in prosciutto was compared to a weird new age children's toy rather than something edible. What's more, Chef Ramsay summed up his tasting experience as swallowing a mouthful of sand. Yikes, I can't even imagine that. But guess what Jesse did? Instead of just taking the feedback, he decided to ask Chef Ramsay some really weird questions.
I mean, how do you like venison?
I know what venison is. It doesn't work.
Even though Jesse tried to argue against the dryness, Chef Ramsay's verdict stood as it is, and Jesse reluctantly accepted it.
I've cooked it 1,000 times, and when venison turns from red to bright white, it's dry.
Yes, sir.
The inevitable moment finally arrived, and the 3 underperformers, Hedel, Jesse, and Veronica, were called up. And guess who got eliminated?
Your time is now up. Please take off your apron and go ahead and leave it on your bench.
Veronica was swiftly sent home packing, having consistently missed the mark. She bid everyone goodbye, claiming that her family would love her cooking even more now that she had been featured on the show. But once again, MasterChef is full of surprises. And Chef Ramsay decided to drop another bomb. While the contestants were now down to the top 15, he said that it was soon about to be the top 14. Yup, we're in double elimination territory now. Chef Ramsay first called out Hedel, claiming that her performance was a huge stumbling block. As for Jesse, this is what happened.
Take off your apron and place it on your bench.
Yup, and just like that, Jessie joined Veronica on her one-way trip out of the MasterChef kitchen. So, do you remember any other embarrassing MasterChef moments that I missed? Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, do not forget to check out my latest video right here, since it's even crazier.